History is a story we tell ourselves, but some objects refuse to follow the script. This video explores 20 mysterious artifacts that predate their supposed invention, challenging everything we think we know about humanity's timeline. You will discover evidence of ancient technology so advanced it seems impossible, forcing a complete re-evaluation of our past. How did a simple clay jar function as an electrical battery 2,000 years ago, and who built a complex astronomical computer in ancient Greece that rivals a modern clock? These are not just old trinkets, they are puzzles that question the very nature of progress and forgotten knowledge. What does it mean when the physical evidence contradicts the history books? This timeline of progress is a comforting narrative, a clean path from primitive to advanced. But what if that path is not a straight line, but a tangled web of rises, falls, and forgotten brilliance? The artifacts we are about to explore are the snags in that web, the threads that do not fit the pattern. To the field of conventional archaeology, they are often labeled as out-of-place artifacts, or OOP arts for short. This is not a formal scientific classification, but a term born from genuine puzzlement. It describes objects that, by their very composition, craftsmanship, or implied knowledge, appear to belong in a time period far removed from the one in which they were found. They are the anachronisms of material culture, the equivalent of finding a smartphone in a medieval castle. These are not simple mistakes in dating, but profound challenges that whisper of alternative histories. They ask us to consider the possibility of lost sciences, of cultural connections across vast oceans and millennia, or of ingenious human minds solving problems we thought were centuries away from being asked. Each one is a piece of a much larger, unsolved puzzle about human ingenuity. And to truly appreciate the depth of this mystery, we start with an object so seemingly mundane, yet so electrically charged with implication that it redefines our understanding of ancient innovation. There it sits in a museum case, a humble clay jar from ancient Iraq. It looks like a simple vessel for storing grain or oil, nothing more, but its contents tell a different story entirely. Inside, archaeologists found a carefully rolled copper cylinder, and within that, an iron rod. The mouth of the jar was sealed with a plug of asphalt, a material known for its excellent insulating properties. To any modern engineer, this configuration is instantly recognizable. It is the basic blueprint for a galvanic cell, a primitive battery. This object, known as the Baghdad Battery, was crafted during the Parthian period, around 200 years before the Common Era. That is nearly 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta would present his voltaic pile to the scientific world and claim the title of inventor. The question is not whether it could work. Experiments have shown that if this jar were filled with an acidic electrolyte, something as common as vinegar or citrus juice, the chemical reaction between the copper and the iron would generate a small but measurable electric current, around 1 to 2 volts. The real haunting question is why it was made. What possible use could a 2,000-year-old artisan have for a trickle of electricity? The theories are as fascinating as the artifact itself. Some suggest it was used for electroplating, to deposit a thin layer of gold or silver onto other metals for decorative jewelry, a practice known from the same region and era. Others propose a more mystical application, perhaps using the subtle tingle of current in religious rituals or for medicinal purposes, a form of ancient therapy. The most unsettling possibility is that it was neither, that it was simply a tool, an understood piece of technology whose common use has been completely erased from the historical record. Was it a solitary experiment by a curious mind, or a surviving fragment of a wider, forgotten understanding? This artifact forces us to confront a profound idea. that the spark of discovery can be lit, lost, and then independently lit again across the vast darkness of centuries. And if ancient hands could harness a fundamental force like electricity, what other complexities were they capable of mastering? Our next artifact suggests the answer lies in the stars, engineered into a mechanism of breathtaking sophistication. The seafloor near the Greek island of Antikythera held a secret for 2,000 years. In the early 1900s, sponge divers exploring a Roman shipwreck brought up a lump of corroded bronze and wood, so encrusted and misshapen it was initially set aside with other unremarkable finds. Decades later, painstaking cleaning and advanced imaging techniques revealed the truth. This was not a statue fragment or a piece of ship's hardware. It was a machine, now known as the Antikythera Mechanism. This object is an analog computer of staggering complexity, crafted in the 2nd century before the Common Era. Its interior is a precise clockwork universe, a labyrinth of over 30 interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth cut so finely they measure just a millimeter across. When its hand crank was turned, this device did not tell the time of day, it told the time of the cosmos. It could predict the positions of the sun and moon, forecast lunar and solar eclipses, and even track the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. It was, in essence, a dynamic, mechanical model of the heavens. The sophistication of its gearing is comparable to that of an 18th-century Swiss clock, a level of precision engineering historians believed was utterly impossible for the ancient Greeks. This was not merely a calendar carved in stone, it was a living, moving simulation. Its very existence shatters the comforting narrative of steady, upward progress. Here was a peak of knowledge, a fusion of advanced astronomy, mathematics, and craftsmanship that then vanished into the depths, both of the sea and of history. It would be over a millennium before anything of similar mechanical complexity would appear again in the historical record. The Antikythera Mechanism is a silent, powerful rebuke, proving that technological brilliance can flare with incredible intensity, only to be swallowed by time, leaving later generations to believe such feats were never within their ancestors' grasp. This artifact speaks of a deep understanding of the cosmos, locked in bronze, but what of understanding that stretched across the globe itself? Our next discovery suggests ancient journeys of a scale that rewrite the maps of the ancient world. The discovery of a single coin can rewrite a continent's story. In 1957, archaeologists excavating a Native American settlement site in the state of Maine unearthed a small, worn silver disc. At first glance, it was just another curious find, but cleaning revealed intricate markings, a cross and a stylized animal. It was not a colonial English penny or a Spanish piece of 8. Expert analysis confirmed it was a Norse silver penny, a genuine artifact minted in Norway during the reign of King Olaf Kyrre, between 1067 and 1093 of the Common Era. This date is what makes the Maine Penny so explosively significant. It was placed in that soil over 400 years before Christopher Columbus set sail. The only confirmed Norse settlement in the Americas is at Elance Aux Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada, a site over 1,000 miles to the north. So how did a coin from an 11th century Norwegian king end up in a prehistoric Native American shell midden so far to the south? The coin itself is a silent witness to journeys we have only begun to trace. The sagas speak of Vinland, a land of wild grapes somewhere west of Greenland, but they provide no detailed maps. The Maine Penny suggests that Norse explorers, or their trade goods, traveled much farther and more frequently than the sparse archaeological record currently shows. Perhaps a Norse trader ventured down the coast, exchanging silver for valuable local resources like furs or timber. Perhaps the coin passed through many hands over generations, moving south along vast, pre-existing indigenous trade networks that span the continent. This second possibility is equally profound. implying that an object from a Viking longhouse could, across decades, find its way deep into the forests of Maine through a complex web of exchange among Native American nations. Either scenario challenges a static view of history. It paints a picture of a pre-Columbian world where the Atlantic was not an impenetrable barrier, but a highway occasionally crossed, and where continents were already connected by intricate chains of contact and commerce. The coin is an outlier, a single data point, and thus hotly debated, but its physical reality is undeniable, a metallic whisper of meetings between worlds that the history books long claimed impossible. If a small coin can hint at such vast, forgotten connections, what then are we to make of an entire library of maps that chart a world supposedly undiscovered? The implications of the Maine Penny ripple outward, suggesting maps of the ancient world may be missing entire continents. But what if a map itself was the artifact, one that charted lands no human of its era should have known? In 1513, Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis compiled a world map of breathtaking scope. This document, drawn on gazelle skin, is a masterpiece of its age, detailing coastlines of Europe, Africa, and the recently charted Americas with impressive skill. Yet its true mystery lies far to the south, in a region labeled simply as the Southern Land. There, the map depicts the northern coastline of Antarctica with a precision that seems impossible. The continent of Antarctica was not officially sighted until 1820, over 300 years after this map was inked. Even more perplexing is what the map shows, or rather, what it does not show. The coastline is rendered free of its massive ice sheet, depicting bays, inlets, and what appear to be topographic features like mountain ranges. Modern geological surveys tell us the last time Antarctica's coast was visibly ice-free in this manner was thousands of years ago, at the end of the last ice age. Piri Reis himself provided a crucial clue in his extensive notes. He wrote that his work was not born from his own voyages alone, but was a compilation drawn from many older source maps, some of which he claimed dated back to the time of Alexander the Great and even earlier. This admission points to a chain of knowledge, a library of ancient cartography that preserved a view of the world from a radically different climatic epoch. The map's accuracy in plotting latitudes and its inclusion of Antarctic features only confirmed by 20th century technology elevate it from a curious antique to a profound enigma. It suggests the faint, fading echo of a forgotten exploratory age. Someone in a distant, unrecorded past possessed not only the seafaring capability to reach such a hostile, remote land, but also the scientific methodology to survey and accurately chart its geography, knowledge that was then copied and preserved for millennia before finding its way onto an Ottoman admiral's desk. This artifact does not just hint at lost voyages, it implies a lost science of global proportion. If ancient eyes could map a world we thought was hidden, could they also capture the very essence of celestial motion in a form meant to last for eternity? The stone walls of the Hathor Temple hold a carving that refuses a simple mythological explanation. Deep within a secluded crypt in Dendera, Egypt, a bas-relief carved over 2,000 years ago presents an image that feels startlingly modern. It shows a large, elongated object reminiscent of a glass bulb. Inside this bulb rests a serpentine form coiled like a filament. This object is supported by a pillar, and from its base stretches a cable that connects to a box held by a kneeling, priest-like figure. Another figure stands nearby as if operating or observing the device. To a contemporary eye, the resemblance to an electric light bulb is undeniable and deeply unsettling. This is the so-called Dendera Light, an artifact that seems to illuminate a possibility far ahead of its time. Mainstream Egyptology offers a compelling symbolic interpretation. Experts explain that the scene almost certainly represents a moment from Egyptian creation mythology, showing a lotus flower, a symbol of birth and rebirth, from which a snake representing the sun god emerges into the world. The pillar is a jed pillar symbolizing stability, and the box is likely a container for this divine power. It is a beautiful, coherent religious narrative carved in stone. Yet, for those who see a technological blueprint, questions persist. The depiction is remarkably precise and mechanical in its appearance, unlike the more fluid and symbolic style of other mythological scenes. Furthermore, these theorists point to a practical puzzle within the temple complex itself: the deep, interior chambers and passageways where no trace of soot from torches or oil lamps has ever been found. How did the ancient artisans work in these pitch-black rooms to create such elaborate carvings? Could they have used a form of illumination that left no residue? The debate between the symbolic and the literal is where this artifact truly holds power. It forces us to question our own assumptions about how ancient cultures recorded their world. Did they only carve gods and symbols, or could their iconography also serve as a form of technical documentation, a way to pass down knowledge of tools and devices that we, millennia later, struggle to recognize? Whether it is a sacred snake or a lost filament, the Dendera relief challenges us to look at ancient art with new eyes, to see not just myth but potential instruction. And if the ancients possessed a grasp of energy that could banish darkness, could they also have mastered a material so stable it seems to laugh at the ravages of time itself? The concept of a material that defies time finds its ultimate expression not in a grand machine, but in a single, silent column. In the heart of Delhi, a towering iron pillar has stood for over 1,600 years. Forged from wrought iron during the reign of the Gupta Empire around the 4th century, it rises nearly 24 feet into the air, a solemn monument to a king long past. Yet its true wonder is not in its height or its age, but in its surface. In a region with distinct monsoon seasons and variable humidity, where ordinary iron would succumb to a thick, flaking crust of rust in just a few generations, this pillar remains smooth and remarkably uncorrupted. It has endured for 16 centuries with only the faintest patina, a metallic defiance of the elements that seems to border on the magical. Modern science, however, has decoded its secret. Metallurgical analysis reveals the pillar is composed of exceptionally pure wrought iron, but its real protection comes from a precise, unintentional chemistry. The iron has a high phosphorus content and a very low sulfur content. This specific combination allows a thin, protective film of iron-hydrogen phosphate to form on the surface, a stable, self-renewing barrier that shields the metal beneath from the corrosive attack of oxygen and moisture. This process, known today as passivation, is a cornerstone of modern anti-corrosion metallurgy, a principle we associate with advanced industrial science. The builders of the Gupta period possessed no electron microscopes or chemical formulae. Their achievement was one of profound empirical mastery, a knowledge forged in countless furnaces and refined through generations of trial and error. They learned through observation and practice exactly how to combine ores, control temperatures, and hammer the metal to produce this incredibly durable alloy. This pillar is not a relic of lost high technology in the sense of electronics or mechanics, but of a consummate material science that has simply never been improved upon. It stands as a quiet, overwhelming testament to the sophistication of ancient craftsmanship, a literal monument to a forgotten standard of quality that modern industry, for all its knowledge, still admires. Where this artifact represents a mastery of the very large and enduring, our next discovery compels us to look in the opposite direction, toward a world of breathtaking, almost invisible smallness. A world of invisible detail lay just beyond the reach of the naked eye, waiting for a tool to bring it into focus. In the ruins of the Assyrian palace at Nimrud, amid the shattered statues and broken tablets, archaeologist Austin Henry Layard uncovered a small, unassuming object in the mid-19th century. It was a piece of naturally occurring rock crystal, carefully ground and polished into an oval shape around 3,000 years ago. One side is flat, the other gently convex, a form that is instantly recognizable to any optician. This is the Nimrud Lens. When held to the light, its purpose becomes clear. It bends and concentrates sunlight into a bright, hot point capable of igniting tinder. More subtly, it possesses a weak magnifying power, roughly tripling the size of an object viewed through it. This simple fact is what makes it so profoundly disruptive. For centuries, the history of optics told a tidy story, that deliberate lenses for magnification were a product of the later classical world or the Renaissance. Yet here, centuries before that timeline even begins, is a crafted lens. Its existence is a quiet revolution. Was it a tool for an elite artisan, a loupe used to inspect the fine engraving on seals or jewelry, bringing minute flaws and exquisite details into sharp relief? Could it have served a priest or scholar, a means to concentrate the sun's rays for a ceremonial kindling of sacred flame, transforming sunlight into divine fire? Or was it, as some skeptics suggest, merely a decorative piece of polished crystal, an inlay for furniture whose optical properties were a happy accident? The weight of its precise shape argues against mere ornament. Someone, in the 8th century before the Common Era, understood that grinding crystal to this specific curvature would alter light in a predictable, useful way. This is not about building a telescope, but about grasping a fundamental principle that the physical world could be manipulated to enhance human perception. The Nimrud Lens is a fragment of proto-science, evidence of a hands-on curiosity about the natural world that sought to extend the senses. It represents the first, crucial step on a path that would eventually lead to the discovery of cells and the mapping of stars. If such a small artifact could expand the seen world, what then of a device engineered to measure the very planet it stands upon, on a scale that seems to span continents? It stands as a silent mountain of questions, a monument so precise it seems to defy its own age. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not an artifact you can hold, but it is perhaps the most imposing out-of-place object on Earth. Constructed around 4,580 years ago during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, its statistics are staggering, but its precision is what truly unsettles. The pyramid's base is a near-perfect square with sides that are almost exactly equal in length, and it is level across an area of over 13 acres to within less than an inch. Its 4 faces are aligned to the cardinal points of the compass with an accuracy of a fraction of a single degree, a feat that would challenge modern surveyors with laser equipment. How was this achieved with the presumed technology of the 4th dynasty, using copper chisels, stone pounders, and ropes? The methods remain one of history's great engineering puzzles. Some researchers point to the use of the pole star or the sun's shadow for alignment, while others speculate about lost leveling techniques using water-filled trenches. The internal architecture deepens the mystery. The so-called air shafts leading from the king's chamber are not for ventilation, as their name implies, but are narrow, precisely angled corridors. One shaft targets the constellation of Orion, associated with the god Osiris, while the other points toward the North Star of that era, Thuban. This suggests the pyramid was not merely a tomb, but a machine designed for a spiritual purpose, aligning the pharaoh's journey with the eternal cycles of the stars. The structure embodies a knowledge of astronomy, geometry, and mass construction that seems, in its flawless execution, almost out of time. It forces us to ask whether we have underestimated the ingenuity of its builders, or if we are missing a chapter in the story of their tools and techniques. This colossal artifact of stone challenges us to look beyond simple explanations, to see in its perfect angles a testament to a sophistication we are still striving to fully comprehend. From this grand scale of celestial architecture, we now turn to a discovery of intimate scale, an object meant for a single finger but forged from a material that should not exist. Sometimes a mystery is solved, and the answer is more instructive than the puzzle itself. In 1961, near Olancha, California, 3 mineral collectors were searching for geodes, the beautiful crystal-lined stones prized by rockhounds. They found a promising nodule, took it back to their workshop, and used a diamond saw to cut it open, expecting a cavity of sparkling quartz. Instead, they found something entirely unexpected. Inside the hard, weathered shell was an object that looked distinctly mechanical. At its center was a metal rod surrounded by a ceramic collar, all encased within a hexagonal metallic shell. To their astonished eyes, it bore a striking resemblance to a modern spark plug. The real shock came from the initial geological assessment of the encasing material, which was estimated to be over 500,000 years old. The story exploded into popular culture, presented as the ultimate out-of-place artifact, a piece of 20th century technology impossibly entombed in prehistoric stone. It seemed to suggest a visitor or a lost civilization from an unimaginably distant past. The mystery, however, unraveled under closer scrutiny. Later, more thorough analysis by geologists and collectors revealed the truth. The object inside was indeed a spark plug, a champion brand model from the 1920s. The hard, stone-like shell surrounding it was not ancient rock, but a concretion, a hard mineral deposit that can form relatively quickly around an object when conditions of mineral-rich water and electrolysis are just right. In the arid environment of the California desert, such a process could encase a discarded spark plug from a broken-down truck or piece of mining equipment in a matter of decades, not millennia. The Coso Artifact stands not as proof of ancient astronauts, but as a profound and necessary lesson. It highlights the critical role of context and rigorous verification in archaeology. The human mind is a pattern recognition engine wired to find meaning and connection, especially when confronted with the unfamiliar. We see a face in the clouds, a figure in the shadows, and sometimes a miraculous artifact in a lump of mineral. This case reminds us that extraordinary claims do require extraordinary evidence, and that natural processes can create scenarios that seem, at first glance, utterly unnatural. It is a cautionary tale about the seduction of a good story, and a reminder to temper wonder with careful inquiry. As we move forward, this lesson in discernment becomes essential, for our next artifact presents a riddle wrapped in ancient gold, one where even the experts cannot agree if it is a toy, a tool, or a model of something far more advanced. The line between a child's toy and a blueprint for flight is impossibly thin. In a tomb at Saqqara, sealed for over 2,000 years, a small wooden object was unearthed that perfectly embodies this ambiguity. Known as the Saqqara Bird, it is a graceful, polished artifact carved from sycamore wood around 200 years before the Common Era. At first glance, it is a stylized bird, its body smooth and wings swept back. But a closer look reveals a detail that changes everything: a vertical tail fin. This is not a feature found on any bird in nature, where tails are horizontal, used for steering and balance. This fin is perfectly perpendicular, an aerodynamic stabilizer, the kind found on the tail of a modern airplane. This single, anomalous feature launched 1,000 questions. Could it be merely a stylized representation of a falcon, the sacred bird of the god Horus, with the fin simply being a misinterpreted feather or a decorative element? Many Egyptologists stand firmly by this interpretation, seeing it as a ritual object or even a simple plaything. Yet the design refuses to be so easily categorized. Intrigued by its shape, aviation historians and engineers have constructed precise replicas of the Saqqara Bird. When these models are launched with a little forward thrust, something remarkable happens. They do not tumble or dive, they glide. The artifact demonstrates stable, aerodynamic lift, traveling a smooth, gentle arc before touching down. It possesses the basic principles of a monoplane glider. This performance is not a fluke of the carving. It is a direct result of its proportions, the angle of its wings, and that critical vertical tail fin which provides directional stability. So what are we truly looking at? Was an ancient artisan, through keen observation of birds in flight, unconsciously replicating the principles of aerodynamics in a toy, achieving through intuition what science would later explain? Or does it represent something more deliberate, a scaled-down model of a larger concept, perhaps even a lost attempt at understanding flight itself? The artifact offers no written manual. It sits at the crossroads of symbol and science, a silent testament to the fact that the human mind, in its quest to represent the world, often stumbles upon profound truths about how that world works. It asks us to hold two possibilities in balance: that a culture could create an object for spiritual meaning, and in doing so, accidentally engineer a perfect little flying machine. This delicate model suggests a hands-on grasp of physical principles, but what are we to make of an object that seems to be a model of a machine whose full-sized version has never been found? Buried deep beneath 35 feet of sand and ancient sediment, a wedge of metal weighted, discovered in 1973 near the town of Aiud in Romania, the object was found in a startling context, resting alongside the massive fossilized bones of a mastodon, a creature that vanished from the earth over 10,000 years ago. The artifact itself is a heavy, wedge-shaped piece of metal, and initial tests revealed its composition to be a complex alloy, primarily aluminum, encased in a thick, hardened layer of aluminum oxide. This is where the timeline fractures. Aluminum is abundant in the Earth's crust, but never in a pure, metallic form. Isolating the metal requires a sophisticated industrial process involving high-temperature electrolysis, a technology that was not developed until the 1820s. So how did a refined aluminum alloy end up buried in a layer of earth that also contained the remains of an Ice Age giant? The immediate implication was staggering, suggesting a level of metallurgy that predates recorded history by millennia. The Aiud Wedge quickly became a flagship example of an out-of-place artifact, a literal metal wrench thrown into the gears of conventional history. Yet, as is so often the case, the full story is a masterclass in archaeological complexity. Further investigation introduced crucial doubts. Some metallurgists noted the alloy's specific makeup was consistent with certain 20th century industrial applications, like the treads of heavy excavator buckets or mining drill teeth. The thick oxide layer, while impressive, can form relatively quickly under the right chemical conditions in soil, and does not automatically signify immense age. The mastodon bones, while ancient, do not definitively date the metal object itself. They merely share the same burial environment, a context that could have been disturbed at any point over the last 10,000 years. This artifact perfectly encapsulates the core dilemma at the heart of so many of these mysteries. It presents an initial, breathtaking anomaly that challenges everything we think we know. But upon closer, more rigorous examination, the evidence often becomes ambiguous, entangled in questions of context, contamination, and interpretation. The Aiud Wedge is not necessarily proof of a lost civilization, but it is undeniable proof of how easily a single find can spiral into profound questions when its original story, its precise place in the ground, is lost or misunderstood. It stands as a solemn reminder that in archaeology the soil can preserve, but it can also conceal the true narrative. This theme of an object holding a secret language, a code waiting for a key, leads us to one of history's most beautiful and impenetrable puzzles. A book that refuses to be read is a unique kind of mystery. The Voynich Manuscript is exactly that, a 240-page codex of vellum, carbon dated to the early 15th century in northern Italy, that has defied understanding for over 600 years. Its physical materials are perfectly ordinary for its time, but what covers its pages is anything but. The entire book is written from start to finish in an elegant, flowing script of unknown characters, an alphabet that matches no known language on Earth. It is not a simple substitution cipher where one letter stands for another, as those patterns are quickly broken by frequency analysis. This script displays the complex, consistent statistical properties of a real language, with word lengths, character repetitions, and sentence structures that feel organic and logical. Yet, its vocabulary is entirely alien. Interwoven with this indecipherable text are illustrations that deepen the enigma. There are pages of lush, detailed plants that do not correspond to any known botanical species, their roots and leaves arranged in impossible combinations. There are intricate astronomical charts featuring unfamiliar constellations and strange celestial diagrams. Most haunting are the sections depicting numerous nude female figures, often immersed in or connected by a network of intricate tubes and vessels, suggesting a mysterious biological or alchemical process. For centuries, this book has been a siren call to the world's greatest cryptographers, including teams of brilliant codebreakers from both world wars who successfully cracked enemy ciphers, yet they all met their match in this medieval puzzle. The theories are as varied as they are compelling. Some believe it is an elaborate, centuries-old hoax crafted to deceive a wealthy patron, though the sheer, consistent effort required to fill hundreds of pages with a meaningless but grammatically structured text makes this seem a task of maddening dedication. Others propose it is a pharmacopoeia of forgotten herbal knowledge, written in a coded guild language to protect trade secrets. The most tantalizing idea is that it represents a complete linguistic dead end, the only surviving document of a lost esoteric tradition, or even a constructed language for capturing a unique worldview. The Voynich Manuscript is more than a curious antique, it is a mirror. We look at it and see only our own reflection, our deep desire for meaning and our frustration when it is withheld. It is a physical object from our past that communicates nothing we can understand, making it the ultimate out-of-place artifact of the intellect. If a book can hold knowledge that is forever just out of reach, what then of stones that were moved with a force that seems equally beyond our grasp? The silent language of stone can speak of a patience we can scarcely comprehend. Scattered across the Diquis Delta of Costa Rica, nestled in jungle clearings and along ancient riverbeds, lie hundreds of massive, nearly perfect stone spheres. Ranging from the size of a melon to colossal orbs over 6 feet in diameter and weighing several tons, these objects are a monument to an obsession with the sphere. Created by the pre-Columbian Diquis culture between 300 and 1500 of the Common Era, their precision is not merely artistic, it is geometric. Carved from hard stone like granite and gabbro, many of these spheres deviate from a perfect mathematical sphere by less than a single centimeter across their entire surface. This level of exactitude is astonishing in any age, but becomes a profound enigma when we consider the tools at hand. The Diquis people are not known to have used metal tools or the wheel. So how did they achieve this? The process remains largely speculative, a puzzle of patience. Experts suggest a likely method involving careful heating and cooling of the stone to create fracture lines, followed by relentless pecking and grinding with other, harder stones, perhaps using sand and water as an abrasive over generations. This was not a quick task, it was a generational project. The investment of labor and skill is staggering, which makes their purpose all the more mysterious. Why devote such immense resources to creating perfect spheres? Some theories propose they were astronomical markers, aligned to celestial events, or symbols of power and status arranged around the homes of leaders. Others see them as territorial indicators or as sacred objects representing celestial bodies like the sun or moon. They contain no inscriptions, offer no written clues. The stone spheres of Costa Rica are a different kind of out-of-place artifact. The material is ordinary local stone, but the technique, the sheer will, to impose perfect geometric form on intractable material with simple tools feels disproportionate to what we know of the society that made them. They are a testament not to lost technology in the sense of machinery, but to a lost cultural imperative, a drive to shape the chaotic earth into a symbol of cosmic order and perfection. This monumental patience in stone gives way to a very different kind of expression, one painted on a cave wall that seems to capture a moment of impossible foresight. The ancient rock art of the Kimberley region holds figures that seem to watch from another world. These are the Wandjina, powerful ancestral beings central to the aboriginal cosmology of the region, painted and repainted on cave walls for thousands of years. They are depicted as majestic, often towering figures with large, dark eyes, radiant halos encircling their heads, and most notably, no mouths. In the Aboriginal tradition, these are the cloud and rain spirits, the creators and lawgivers who brought the landscape to life and whose continued presence in ceremony ensures the life-giving monsoon will return. Their lack of a mouth signifies their immense power, as they do not need to speak to influence the world. To a modern eye, however, the visual description is startlingly familiar, echoing the common imagery of extraterrestrial visitors or figures in spacesuits. This anachronistic resemblance has, predictably, drawn speculation from outside the culture, framing the Wandjina as evidence of ancient contact with otherworldly beings. This interpretation, however, creates a profound disconnect. It imposes a 20th-century science fiction lens onto a living, spiritual tradition that is tens of thousands of years old. The Wandjina art presents a different kind of mystery, one not of technology but of perception. It challenges us to recognize the vast gap between an artifact's original, culturally embedded meaning and the new narratives we project upon it. When we see an astronaut where the artist saw a rainmaker, we are not uncovering a hidden history, we are witnessing the power of our own imagination to reshape the past. This forces a vital question: how do we honor the authentic, profound spiritual legacy of the first peoples, while still acknowledging the human urge to find patterns that resonate with our own time? The Wandjina remain, their silent gaze a reminder that some of the most profound mysteries are not about what ancient people saw, but about how we choose to see them. From this interplay of ancient symbol and modern myth, we turn to an object whose mystery is not in its interpretation, but in the sheer, inexplicable feat of its creation. A hammer out of time is a story written in stone. In 1936, near London, Texas, a curious discovery was made. A couple walking along a creek bed found a piece of rock with what appeared to be a wooden tool handle protruding from it. When the rock was broken open, it revealed a complete hammer with a wooden handle and an iron head, seemingly encased within solid stone. The rock surrounding it was identified as a type of ancient limestone from the Cretaceous period, a layer of earth formed over 100 million years ago during the age of dinosaurs. The conundrum was immediate and electrifying. How could a clearly man-made object, a tool of iron and wood, be imprisoned inside stone that predated humanity by tens of millions of years? It seemed like the ultimate anachronism, a piece of human industry dropped into a world of giant reptiles. This artifact, known as the London Hammer, quickly became a centerpiece for theories of lost civilizations or even time travelers. Yet, as with the Coso Artifact, the true story is a lesson in geology, not in lost epochs. Geologists point to a perfectly natural process. The hammer is not embedded in bedrock but within a concretion. Concretions are hard, compact masses of mineral matter that form around a nucleus like a shell or a piece of debris when mineral-rich water percolates through sediments. In the right conditions, these can harden surprisingly quickly within centuries or even decades, not over millions of years. The hammer, likely dropped or discarded by a miner or settler in the 19th century, simply became the nucleus for such a formation. The surrounding stone, while chemically similar to ancient Cretaceous rock, was a much younger concretion that had formed in a creek bed sitting atop those ancient layers. The London hammer's power, then, is not as proof of impossible history, but as a masterclass in context. Its initial, sensational presentation created a narrative so compelling it overrode a more mundane explanation. It underscores a vital principle for any curious mind: the need to seek disciplined scientific analysis before embracing the most exciting story. Nature has a profound ability to create scenarios that look designed, to wrap the ordinary in a shell that makes it appear extraordinary. This artifact reminds us that separating the truly mysterious from the masterfully misleading is the first, crucial step in any real discovery. And sometimes the greatest mysteries are not about mistaken context, but about an object whose true purpose, despite being found in the right place and time, remains utterly elusive. The mystery of a solitary object is magnified when it speaks a language no one else has ever heard. On the sun-baked island of Crete, within the ruins of the ancient Minoan palace of Phaistos, archaeologists uncovered a small, fired clay disc in 1908. It dates to the second millennium before the Common Era, a time of vibrant Bronze Age culture. What makes this disc so utterly unique is its surface. On both sides, a continuous spiral of strange, beautiful symbols is stamped into the clay, a sequence of 241 impressions featuring everything from human heads and birds to ships and abstract marks. This is the Phaistos Disc, and it presents not one but two profound puzzles that have resisted solution for over a century. The first puzzle is the script itself. This is a form of hieroglyphic or pictographic writing that appears nowhere else in the world. No other tablet, no other inscription, no fragment of pottery from any site bears these same symbols. It is a language of one, a solitary message from a silent culture, forever awaiting a Rosetta Stone that may never be found. Scholars have proposed countless theories, suggesting it is a hymn, a legal document, a calendar, or a board game, but without a key, the disc remains stubbornly mute. The second puzzle, however, is even more technologically jarring. These symbols were not carved by hand. Each one was created by pressing a pre-formed seal into the soft clay, like using individual stamps. This means the creator of the Phaistos Disc possessed a set of reusable type, a complete font to compose this message. This is the fundamental principle of movable type printing, a revolutionary information technology that would not emerge in East Asia until the 11th century of the Common Era, and in Europe until the 15th century with Gutenberg. Yet here it is in the Mediterranean over 3,000 years earlier. The disc is a double anomaly, an unknown language captured by a premature invention. It stands as a breathtaking snapshot of a potentially lost information technology from the Bronze Age. Was this method an isolated experiment by a single inventive mind in the palace workshop? Or does it represent the only surviving fragment of a wider practice, a way of duplicating texts that simply did not survive the fires, earthquakes, and collapses that ended the Minoan world? The Phaistos Disc is a haunting reminder that an idea can be born, used, and then vanish from the historical record, leaving behind a single, perfect artifact that testifies to a brilliance we can see but cannot fully comprehend. From this encoded clay disc, we turn to an artifact carved from a material that seems to capture and bend light itself, suggesting a different kind of lost precision. The allure of a perfect crystal skull is a story carved from equal parts adventure and illusion. Popularized in the 1920s by the flamboyant explorer Frederick Albert Mitchell Hedges, this life-sized skull, meticulously carved from a single block of clear quartz, was presented with a tantalizing tale. He claimed his daughter discovered it beneath an ancient altar in a Mayan city in Belize, suggesting it was a sacred pre-Columbian artifact of immense age and mystical power. Its craftsmanship was undeniably stunning, with a removable jawbone and a polished, almost liquid surface that seemed to capture and bend light. For decades, it fueled imaginations, appearing as a centerpiece in stories of lost Atlantis, psychic power, and ancient high technology. It became the ultimate symbol of a mysterious, spiritually advanced past. Science, however, eventually turned its unblinking eye upon the legend. When researchers subjected the skull to the scrutiny of scanning electron microscopy, a tool that can reveal the minutest traces of a craftsman's method, the romantic story began to fracture. The analysis found telltale marks left by rotating wheels and diamond-tipped tools, equipment that simply did not exist in the pre-Columbian Americas. The evidence pointed decisively to a creation date in the 19th or early 20th century, likely carved in a European workshop specializing in such curiosities. The Mitchell-Hedges skull, then, is likely a beautiful modern fabrication, yet its enduring power in popular culture is itself a profound artifact of the human mind. It speaks to our deep, almost innate fascination with the idea of a single, perfect object holding the secrets of a lost world. It reveals how easily Romanticism can weave a compelling narrative around an object, often overshadowing the quieter, more complex truth. This artifact serves as a crucial checkpoint in our journey, a reminder that genuine mystery requires rigorous proof and clear provenance. It cautions us to temper wonder with discernment, to appreciate an object's beauty while honestly seeking its origin. For every enigma that challenges history, there may be a masterpiece of modern artistry waiting for its own story to be told. And sometimes the true mystery lies not in a fabricated past, but in the genuinely inexplicable method behind an object whose ancient origin is not in doubt. A name etched in steel can whisper of a secret that spanned continents. Among the thousands of Viking swords recovered from rivers and burial mounds across Europe, a rare few bear a distinct and powerful inscription, the name Ulfberht. Forged between the 9th and 11th centuries, these weapons were not just tools of war, they were masterpieces of metallurgy that stood head and shoulders above their contemporaries. While most European swords of the era were made from soft, impure iron that could bend or shatter in the heat of battle, the Ulfberht blades were something else entirely. They were crafted from a high-carbon crucible steel, a material of exceptional purity, strength, and flexibility. When struck, a common sword might give a dull thud, but an Ulfberht would ring with a clear, bright tone. This steel was so advanced that its quality would not be matched in Europe on a consistent basis until the breakthroughs of the Industrial Revolution, nearly 800 years later. So how did Viking smiths, often romanticized as brutal raiders, come to wield such sophisticated technology? The answer lies not in a single workshop, but in the vast, interconnected trade routes of the medieval world. The chemical signature of the steel points east. The nearest known source for this quality of crucible steel at the time was the Islamic world and regions of Central Asia, where smiths had perfected a technique of melting iron in sealed clay crucibles to burn out impurities and infuse it with carbon, creating a uniform, high-grade ingot known as Damascus steel. It appears the Vikings, through their far-reaching trade networks down the Volga River and across the Black Sea, acquired these precious steel ingots. They then transported them back north, where a guild of elite smiths, perhaps under the direction of a master named Ulfberht or operating under that trademark, forged them into legendary blades. The swords are not out of place in time, but in technological context. They represent a fleeting moment of global connection, where a superior material science traveled thousands of miles to be shaped by skilled hands in a different culture. When those specific trade routes later collapsed or shifted, the supply of this miraculous steel vanished. The knowledge of how to work it faded, and Europe returned to an age of inferior iron, the secret of the Ulfberhts buried until modern science could rediscover it. These swords are a powerful lesson in the fragility of progress, showing that technological peaks can be sustained by delicate networks of exchange, and when those networks fail, the peak itself can be lost to memory. They speak of a world more connected than we often assume, where a blade forged in a Norse furnace could begin its life as raw material from a mine in Persia. If a sword can tell a story of trade spanning continents, what then of a map that seems to chart a coastline no European could have possibly known? A map can promise a new world, but the ink that draws it must tell the same story. The Vinland Map emerged into the public eye in the 1960s, a seemingly ordinary medieval parchment that contained an extraordinary secret. Within its faded lines was a depiction of a vast landmass west of Greenland, labeled clearly in Latin as Vinland. If genuine, this document would be the first known cartographic evidence of Norse knowledge of North America, predating Columbus by half a century and offering a tangible link to the sagas. The excitement was immediate and immense, for here was a document that could visually rewrite the narrative of discovery. The map's style and other content seemed consistent with a 15th century origin, and for a time it was celebrated as a transformative historical treasure. The desire for it to be real was a powerful force, shaping initial interpretations and fueling a captivating story. Yet, true understanding often lies in the smallest details, in chemistry rather than cartography. When scientists subjected the map to rigorous forensic analysis, a glaring anachronism was revealed. The ink used to draw the controversial Vinland coastline, and indeed much of the map, contained a specific crystalline form of titanium dioxide called anatase. This synthetic pigment was not commercially produced or used in inks until the 20th century, with common use beginning in the 1920s. Its presence on a purportedly medieval parchment is akin to finding a polyester thread woven into a tapestry from the Age of Knights. The evidence strongly points to a sophisticated modern forgery, a creation designed to fulfill a historical longing. The saga of the Vinland Map is not a story of failure, but a vital lesson in historical methodology. It demonstrates how our deepest hopes for the past can cloud our scrutiny, and how the romance of a single artifact can temporarily overshadow the quiet, cumulative weight of scientific evidence. This episode reinforces that skepticism is not cynicism. It is a necessary tool of respect for the genuine past. It ensures that the history we build is founded on bedrock, not on wishful thinking. This disciplined mindset becomes our most crucial guide as we approach the final artifact on our list, one that presents a mystery not of ink and parchment, but of cosmic material and a message that seems to echo from the dawn of time itself. The final artifact is not something you can hold, but a place you must walk through. Göbekli Tepe is a hill in southeastern Turkey where the ground itself holds a secret that dismantles a foundational story of humanity. Here, massive limestone pillars, some weighing over 20 tons, were carved and erected into great stone circles between 9,600 and 7,300 years before the Common Era. To grasp that timescale, this site is over 6,000 years older than Stonehenge. It predates the invention of pottery, the use of metal tools, and the very concept of the wheel. Its builders did not have domesticated animals for heavy labor, only their own strength and ingenuity. Each towering T-shaped pillar is a work of art, etched with breathtaking bas-reliefs of animals, scorpions, foxes, and birds, rendered with an artistic confidence and symbolic complexity that feels utterly out of time. For over a century, archaeological theory rested on a clear, logical sequence. First, humans discovered agriculture, which created a food surplus. That surplus allowed people to settle in permanent villages. From those stable communities, social hierarchies and specialized labor emerged, and only then, with organized society, could humans muster the resources and coordination to undertake monumental building projects like temples or megalithic circles. Göbekli Tepe shatters that sequence completely. The people who built this were not settled farmers. All evidence indicates they were hunter-gatherers, nomadic bands who followed the herds. Yet they somehow organized across generations to quarry, transport, and erect these colossal stones, carving them with intricate symbolism before deliberately burying the entire complex, perhaps as part of its sacred purpose. This site turns the traditional narrative on its head. It suggests that the driving force behind the dawn of civilization may not have been economics, but something deeper in the human spirit. Perhaps it was the urge to gather for ritual, to create a shared sacred space that first brought people together in large, coordinated groups. This communal effort, this need to build something greater than themselves, may have been the catalyst that eventually led to the domestication of plants and animals, not the other way around. Göbekli Tepe is the ultimate out-of-place artifact because the artifact is an entire landscape. It does not just suggest a lost technology, but a lost chapter in the story of us, one where collective belief and artistic expression built the foundation upon which everything else, from cities to empires, would later stand. Gathered together, these 20 artifacts are not merely a list of curiosities, but a collective conversation about the human journey. Stepping back, we can see powerful themes emerging, threads that connect a Babylonian jar to a Viking sword and a Turkish hilltop. One of the most haunting themes is the profound loss of knowledge. Time and again, we see evidence of sophisticated techniques, from the precise passivation of the Delhi iron pillar to the intricate gearing of the Antikythera Mechanism, that were mastered and then seemingly erased from the collective memory of humanity. These were not secrets kept by a single person, but widespread practices that, for reasons of social collapse, shifting trade routes, or simply the fading of a craft tradition, vanished into the silence between eras. This pattern suggests that progress is not a permanent acquisition, but a fragile flame that can be extinguished, forcing future generations to rediscover what was once known. This leads directly to a second, deeply human theme, the perpetual challenge of interpretation. When we look at the Dendera relief or the Wandjina figures, we are seeing through a double lens our own modern worldview and the lost cultural context of the creators. Our tendency is to project our own technological reality onto the past, to see a light bulb where ancient artists saw a sacred snake, or an astronaut where they painted a rainmaker. This is not a failure, but a reminder of the vast gulf that time creates. Without the living language, the oral traditions, and the daily rituals that gave these objects meaning, we are left to guess at their purpose, often confusing profound spiritual symbolism for literal instruction manuals. The Voynich Manuscript and the Phaistos Disc stand as perfect monuments to this struggle, their messages locked away because we have lost the key to their grammar. These reflections force us to abandon a comforting myth, the idea of linear, inevitable progress. The story these artifacts tell is not of a smooth, upward curve from primitive to advanced. It is a jagged landscape of brilliant peaks and deep valleys. The Antikythera Mechanism represents a zenith of mechanical astronomy that would not be reached again for over 1,000 years. The Ulfberht Swords showcase a metallurgical standard that disappeared from Europe for centuries. Human innovation, it seems, is not a relentless march forward, but a series of regional flourishes, connections, and tragic regressions. A society can reach extraordinary heights in one domain while remaining seemingly simple in others, as the hunter-gatherers at Göbekli Tepe demonstrated by building a temple complex before they had permanent homes. This non-linear path makes the final theme all the more critical, the indispensable role of disciplined inquiry and healthy skepticism. Our journey has shown us that for every genuine, world-shifting mystery like the Antikythera device, there is a cautionary tale like the London hammer or the Mitchell Hedges skull. The initial, thrilling narrative of an object found out of time must always be tempered by rigorous science, careful contextual analysis, and a willingness to follow the evidence even when it leads to a more ordinary but truthful conclusion. This process is not about dismissing wonder, but about honoring the real past by clearing away the noise of misidentification, natural formation, and deliberate forgery. It is the meticulous work of archaeology that allows the true anomalies to shine all the brighter. Ultimately, these common threads weave a richer, more honest tapestry of our shared history. It is a story less settled but far more intriguing than any simple timeline. It is a narrative that makes room for forgotten genius, for cultural connections across impossible distances, and for the sobering reality that knowledge, once won, can still be lost. These artifacts do not give us easy answers, but they ask us better questions, inviting us to look at the past not as a dead and settled record, but as a living, breathing puzzle that is still being solved, one mysterious object at a time. This journey through 20 chronological puzzles reveals a history far more wondrous than any simple timeline. From the humble clay jar in Baghdad to the monumental circles of Göbekli Tepe, each object is a whisper from the past that refuses to be silenced. They are not errors in the record, but deliberate questions etched in stone, metal, and clay, challenging the very narrative we have written for ourselves. These artifacts serve as powerful reminders that the past is not a closed book with a definitive ending, but a living, breathing mystery. Its pages are still being turned, and on many of them, we find passages written in a language we are only beginning to decipher. This collection of anomalies gently undermines any arrogance about modern superiority. They ask us to consider a more fluid and fascinating story of human ingenuity, one where brilliance is not a permanent possession but a flame that can flicker, fade, and be independently rekindled across vast stretches of time. The possibility of lost sciences and forgotten connections does not require a supernatural explanation to be profoundly meaningful. It simply asks for humility. It acknowledges that a culture we label as primitive could achieve a feat of engineering or materials science that stuns us today, not because they had help from beyond, but because the human mind, in any era, is capable of extraordinary focus and creativity when driven by need, belief, or sheer curiosity. The true value of these mysteries lies not in proving any single alternative theory, but in how they enrich our entire quest for knowledge. They are the outliers that push the boundaries of archaeology and history, forcing experts to ask better questions and re-examine long-held assumptions. A single coin in Maine expands our view of pre-Columbian trade networks. A corroded lump of bronze from a shipwreck rewrites the history of technology. These objects are the catalysts for deeper inquiry, protecting our understanding of the past from becoming stagnant or dogmatic. So let these 20 artifacts be an inspiration to look at the world, both past and present, with a more curious and questioning mind. Look at an ancient relief and see not just a myth but a potential document. Look at a modern tool encased in stone and remember the importance of context. History is not just found in grand battles and famous rulers, but in the quiet, puzzling objects left behind by everyday people who were, in their own time, solving problems and expressing ideas with the tools they had. Their legacy is this enduring puzzle, an invitation to keep exploring, wondering, and discovering. If you found this journey into history's greatest anomalies fascinating, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries that shape our world. We would love to hear which artifact intrigued you the most, so share your thoughts in the comments below.